Hi friends, today we are going to discuss on metamorphic phase rule and the various chemographic diagrams used in metamorphism. Before discussing the metamorphic phase rule and the chemographic diagrams, we must notice that regardless of the path, the equilibrium mineralogy and the composition of each mineral will be entirely fixed by the temperature, pressure and the composition of the system. That means it doesn't matter if a rock undergone cooling, heating or burial and any kind of change. In the Gibbs phase rule, we have F equal to C minus P plus 2, where P is the number of phases in the system, C equals to the number of components and F is the degree of freedom. Now see, the components here we have is the minimum number of chemical constituents that is required to specify every phase in the system. यानी कि सपोज मान लो हमारे पास एक रॉक है और उस रॉक में बहुत टाइप के मिनरल्स है एंड सारे मिनरल्स का अपना अपना केमिकल कंपोजिशन होता है, बट C is not the number of minerals present in the system. C is the minimum number of chemical constituents that are present in a system. Let's take the example of Al2SiO5 polymorphic system. Here we have three polymorphs: andalusite, kyanite and sylvanite. Now see, if we consider the line that is present between kyanite and andalusite, so on that line both kyanite and andalusite coexist. So if we have to apply Gibbs phase rule on that particular line, so the phase here will be 2. If we have to apply the phase rule at A, then there we have just one phase, that is kyanite, and as it is a unicomponent system, that is the only component is Al2SiO5, so the component will be 1. So now if you put the value of P and C in the phase rule, then we will get the value of degree of freedom is 2. So these points are called bivariant field. Now let's talk about the point B, which is the intersection of kyanite and andalusite. Here two phases coexist. One is kyanite and the other one is andalusite. So here phase will be 2 and as it is unicomponent, so component will be 1. Now if we put these values in the phase rule, then we will get that the degree of freedom is 1. That's why these lines are called univariant curves. Okay, now let's talk about point C. At point C, all kyanite, andalusite and sylvanite, all three coexist. So the number of phases at that point is 3. Now if we put the value in phase rule, then we will get the value of F is 0. So that's why it is called an invariant point. Now let's discuss about the degree of freedom. Degree of freedom is the number of intensive variables that can be varied independently without the change in phase. See, we have mainly three intensive variables: pressure, temperature and chemical composition of the rock. Now, what do we mean by intensive variables? These are the property of a system which doesn't depend upon the amount of substance present in the system. Let's take an example. Suppose we have a bucket of water at 40 degrees Celsius. Now, if we remove half of the water from the bucket that we have, then that won't affect the temperature of the water. The temperature would remain same, 40 degrees Celsius. But if we look into the volume of water that was present before and the volume of water that is present after this, so we will notice that the volume has reduced. So volume is an extensive property which depend upon the amount of substance present in the system. But temperature, pressure, these are intensive property and these are independent of the amount of substance present in the system. Now in this figure, as you can see, there are two variables. One is pressure and other one is temperature. Now observe the line A in kyanite zone. As you can see, for the same temperature for 400 degrees Celsius, we can have different pressures like 0.2, 0.4 and 0.6 gigapascal and so on. So you can say that pressure is not dependent on temperature. That is, we can increase or decrease pressure without changing temperature. Now similarly, consider the line B. Here it shows at 0.8 gigapascal we have several temperatures like 400 degrees Celsius, 500, 600, 700 degrees Celsius, etc. Here you can clearly see that for a particular pressure we can have a series of temperatures out there. So the increase or decrease in pressure is not dependent on the temperature as well. So that's why we call this zone bivariant field. Now consider this diagram. Now if we want to calculate the degree of freedom on the line joining kyanite and sillimanite, see, for the point A we have 0.8 gigapascal pressure and 700 degrees Celsius. And now if we change, now on the same line, if we move from A to B, then we have at 0.6 gigapascal pressure we have 600 degrees Celsius. So you can clearly see that if we want to change the pressure, then the temperature automatically gets changed. So there is only one variable that we can change independently, and by changing that, the next variable automatically gets changed. So the degree of freedom is 1. Now let's consider the point D where all the three phases coexist. At D, at nearly 0.3 gigapascal pressure and 500 degrees Celsius, all three phases, that is kyanite, andesite and sillimanite, all three coexist. Now see, if we slightly change the temperature or pressure from this point, then the equilibrium between all three phases won't exist again. Okay, so that is a unique temperature pressure at which all the three phases coexist. So that's called an invariant point where we cannot vary either pressure or temperature. Okay, now that we have discussed P, F and C from the phase rule, now we should answer the question that why do we add 2? What's the significance of 2? See, 2 stands for 2 independent variables, pressure and temperature. Now you must have seen that in igneous we have a reduced phase rule, that is P plus F equal to C plus 1, and the reason is that we have isobaric condition there, that is we operate the reactions at a constant pressure. So there is only one variable, that is temperature. That's why the phase rule is changed to P plus F equal to C plus 1. But in metamorphic there is no such case, and we use the general phase rule, that is P plus F equal to C plus 2. Okay, now that we have discussed about the phase rule in metamorphism, now let's take a look on the chemographic diagrams in metamorphism. These are the graphical representation of the chemistry of mineral assemblies. These diagrams are used to depict or represent the mineral assemblies of a particular rock. As you may already know, there are many chemographic diagrams like SCF diagram, AKF diagram and all this. Here we use triangles to represent the mineral assemblies of a particular rock. So it is the graphical representation of chemistry of mineral assemblies. Here we use a triangular diagram to represent mineral composition. But we have a problem here. In order to plot the composition of minerals in a triangle, we can plot a maximum of 3 components, but we have nearly 11 to 12 components in the metamorphic minerals. That means we need to reduce our component to 3 because we can accommodate only 3 components in the triangular diagram. Now, in order to do that, we use various methods. There, we ignore some components of the rock that are present in very small quantity in the rock. See, if a component has very small amount in the rock, then we can ignore that amount, and we also ignore some mobile components such as H2O, Ca2, etc. The first process is to ignore some components. See, in a rock, there are some components which are present in very small quantity, and it's okay if we ignore all those components. And we also ignore the mobile components in the rock such as H2O, CO2, etc. Now the second method is to combine some components that are known to freely substitute for one another. For example, Fe and Mg or Fe and Mn could be combined because they readily substitute for one another in the ferromagnesian silicates. See, Fe, Mg and Mn, due to their similar size, they readily substitute for one another, and hence we can combine them in a single component. The next technique we can use is to limit the range of composition that a diagram would apply to. Here we try to deal with a particular subset of rock which has a limited composition, and by this we limit the composition of the system. See, we assume that a constituent will always be present and we project compositions from that constituent. Let's suppose we have a rock where we have different constituents along with SiO2. Now, in general, SiO2 is always present in the rock. So, we can project the diagrams from SiO2 in order to restrict the composition to 3. Now, the next question is, Why should we study these chemographic diagrams? First, as the name suggests, we can check if two minerals are compatible with each other or not. In other words, we can conclude if two given minerals can be found together at a particular temperature pressure condition or not. And the next application is we can determine the mineral composition of a rock from the diagram. Okay, let us know how. Consider a hypothetical system ABC. Look at the field where X is situated. That's a divergent field, so F equal to 2. Now, if we apply phase rule there, P plus F equal to C plus 2. Here F equal to 2, because it is a triangular diagram, so C equal to 3. Now, if we put the values of F and C in the equation, then we can get that the value of P comes to be 3. So, for divergent field, we get 3 coexisting phases. That means, if a rock has composition X, then it will have mineral A, AB and A2C in it. Okay. Now see, if the mineral phases that coexist together are connected by a line that is called tie line, the line joining AB and A2C is a tie line. Okay. Now see, minerals are stable and they coexist with each other at a particular temperature and a pressure range. Now, if we vary the temperature and pressure, then obviously the stability of the mineral also changes. And the minerals that were coexisting in the previous temperature and pressure condition may not coexist together at the new temperature pressure condition. Now see, tie line joins the mineral compositions that coexist together. As a result, that's why tie lines break and new tie lines form as the temperature and pressure condition changes. You can compare both the diagrams shown here. In the previous case, AB and A2C, they coexist together and so they are joined by a tie line. As we change the temperature and pressure condition, AB and A2C, they cannot coexist together and they reacted to form 2A plus ABC. The tie line between AB and A2C broke. The new tie line is formed between AB and ABC, and similarly A2C with ABC. Now coming on to the type of chemographic diagrams, we have 3 types of chemographic diagrams here. One is ACF, second one is AKF, and the third one is AFM diagram. First, let's discuss about ACF diagram. It was proposed by Escola in 1915. As you can see, it has 3 pseudo components A, C and F, where A is Al2O3 plus Fe2O3 minus Na2O and K2O, and C is CaO minus 3.3 P2O5, and F is FeO plus MgO plus MnO. Now here 2 questions arises. First of all, why do we subtract the amount of Na2O and K2O? And second, what is this 3.3? Okay, see, Al2O3 is commonly found associated with Na2O and K2O. For example, in orthoclase, we have KAlSi3O8. In plagioclase, we have NaAlSi3O8. We are interested in the amount of Al2O3 left over after it has combined with Na2O and K2O. So, at the first look, it may seem that we are subtract the amount of Na2O and K2O from Al2O3, but in reality, we are subtracting the amount of Al2O3 that is associated with Na2O and K2O, so that we can get the remaining amount of Al2O3 that is present in excess. Okay. Now coming on to the 3.3 P2O5. Similarly, we are interested in only the CaO that exists in excess of that captured by P2O5 to create apatite. See, in most of the rocks, CaO and P2O5 combine in the ratio of 1:3.3. That's why here we subtract 3.3 P2O5 from 1 CaO. Okay. Now the third component is F, which is FeO plus MgO plus MnO. Now this is a pseudo component which is based on the common exchangeability of iron, magnesium and manganese. In most of the cases, iron, magnesium and manganese show common exchangeability between the atoms. So that's why we have considered them into a single phase and they are renamed as F. Okay. Now see, the triangular diagrams only work if the sum of 3 components equal to 1, or it is 100% if you are plotting in percentage. So we have to normalize the values of A, C and F to 1. You can understand it clearly when we plot some minerals in the ACF diagram. Okay, now let's try to plot some minerals in the ACF diagram. First we have hypersthene, which has the formula MgFeSiO3. So here the first thing we have to do is to convert them into their corresponding general oxides. Okay, so here we will have FeO plus MgO and SiO2. Okay, now for A, we don't have any Al2O3, Fe2O3, Na2O and K2O here. Remember that we are talking about Fe2O3 here in A, but in hypersthene it is present in FeO form. Okay, so we have A equal to 0 here, and there is no CaO present, so C equal to 0. And because it has only FeO and MgO component, so it has only F equal to 1. So the mineral hypersthene will be plotted on the F vertex of the ACF diagram. Okay, now let's take another example. Let's take the example of tremolite, which has the formula Ca2 MgFe5 Si8 O22 and OH whole 2. Now if we want to rewrite its chemical formula in the form of oxides, so we will have 2CaO, 5 MgFe oxide and 8 SiO2 and H2O. We have no Al2O3 present here, so A equal to 0, and we have 2 CaO, so C component will be 2, and there are 5 molecules of Mg and FeO, so F equal to 5. Okay, now in this case, because we have more than one component present, so we have to normalize the values to plot them in the triangular diagram C. In order to do that, first let's sum up all the A, C and F values. Here A equal to 0, C equal to 2 and F equal to 5. So by adding up them, we get total 7. Now to get the normalized value of A, we write the value of A divided by the total value and into 100. Now to calculate the normalized value of A, we must divide the value of A by the total number and multiply the whole thing into 100. See, for example, we have A equal to 0 here. So 0 by 7 into 100, which will be 0. Now for C, we have C equal to 2. So for C, we have 2 divided by total, that is 2 divided by 7 into 100, which will give you 28.57%. And for F, the value is 5. So we have 5 divided by 7 into 100, which will give you 71.43%. Now it has some demerits too. Okay, we will try to understand it through an example. Let's try to plot orthoclase in the ACF diagram. For orthoclase, the formula is KlSi3O8. So if we want to break it into oxide form, we will have half K2O, half Al2O3 and the rest SiO2. So now calculating the value of ACF, we have half Al2O3. So A is equal to 0.5. For A, we have Al2O3 plus Fe2O3 minus K2O minus Na2O. So for Al2O3, we have half Al2O3. So we put 0.5, and for K2O, we subtract 0.5 from it. So the total value of A becomes 0. Now it has no C value, that is it has no CaO present, and there is no FeO, MgO or MnO present in it. So the value of A, C and F all becomes 0. And hence we cannot plot plagioclase in the ACF diagram. Similarly, if you try to plot muscovite in the ACF diagram, then you will find that the value of A becomes greater than 1. So we can plot it in ACF diagram. In this figure, you see this figure that we are seeing right now is a ACF diagram plotting all the minerals in it. But it is not a valid chemographic diagram. Why? Because it doesn't include any tie lines in it. So we cannot say the minerals are stable at any particular temperature or pressure condition. This is the exact compatibility diagram of ACF, where we have valid tie lines to denote the temperature and pressure conditions at which various minerals are stable. Now in the ACF diagram, you will notice that Some minerals are not confined to a particular point, but they occur in a particular zone. This occurs when there is a solid solution in between them. That is, they have a varied chemical composition among each other. This is all about SCF diagram. Now, in order to address the demerits present in SCF diagram, a new diagram was proposed by Escola, which is known as AKF diagram. Now, this was proposed for the rocks which have high Al2O3 and K2O percentage, but they are low in CO. Now, in AKF, we have three pseudo components A, K and F. A stands for Al2O3 plus Fe2O3 minus Na2O plus K2O plus CO. Here we are interested in only that Al2O3 which is found in excess after Al2O3 is combined with Na2O, K2O and CO to form feldspar. See, Al2O3 is generally found with Na2O, K2O and CO to form feldspar. But here we are interested in that amount of Al2O3 which is left out after the feldspar is formed from the Al2O3. Okay. Now K has only the amount of K2O in it, and Fe equal to FeO plus MgO plus MnO, which is same as SCF diagram. Now see, by AKF diagram we have solved one of our problem. That is, we can plot orthoclase in the chemographic diagram. But we have one more problem to address, and that is, if you look carefully, you can notice that we have subtracted the CaO component at A. So any calcium oxide bearing mineral such as anorthite cannot be placed in AKF diagram. Here all the normalization and the plotting process will be same as SCF diagram. Now let's try to plot orthoclase in AKF diagram. For orthoclase we have the formula KAlSi3O8, and if we break it into oxide form we will have half K2O, half Al2O3 and 3 SiO2. Now in order to calculate the A part, for Al2O3 we have 0.5, but we have to subtract 0.5 because of half K2O value. So the total value of A becomes half minus half, which is 0. Now for K2O we have half K2O, so the value of K is 0.5 and there is no F component present, so F equal to 0. Now because there is only one component present which is K, so there is no normalization needed. K feldspar will plot at the K vertex of the AKF diagram. Let's try another example. Let's try to plot moscovite in AKF diagram. For moscovite we have the formula KAl3 Si3O10 OH whole 2, which can be broken down into oxide form, and it will be half K2O, 3/2 Al2O3, 3 SiO2 and H2O. Now we are interested in only the K2O and the Al2O value. So for A we will have 3/2 Al2O3 minus 1/2 K2O. So the final value of A will be 1. And now for K we have half K2O. So the value of K will be 1/2. And there is no F component, that is there is no FeO, MgO or MnO present here. So the value of F will be 0. Now we have more than one component present here, so we need to normalize the values in order to plot them in the AKF diagram. The normalization process is simple. The normalization process is same as the SCF diagram, and if you normalize it, you will get a value. The value of A is 66.7% and the value of K is 33.3% and the value of F is 0%. Now this diagram shows all the minerals which are plotted in AKF diagram. Note that AKF diagram are used for CaO poor and K2O rich rocks, whereas SCF rocks are used for Al2O3 and CaO rich rocks. See, in AKF diagram we subtract the value of C. That means we can use it in that rock where CaO is present in a minimal amount. Similarly, we have a place for K2O in AKF diagram, so we can plot the minerals which are rich in K2O value. Now we have one more issue to address. See, till now in SCF and AKF diagram we have used FeO and MgO as a single component. If you think carefully, you will notice that the mineral composition of FeMg solid solution is very much dependent on temperature and pressure. For example, let's take the example of olivine. We have magnesium bearing olivine, which is known as frostierite, and the iron bearing olivine, which is known as fayalite. Now, there is a huge difference in the melting point of frostierite and fayalite. Realizing this, J.B. Thomson developed a project diagram that takes into account possible variation in the magnesium and iron ratio of ferromagnesian minerals, which is very useful in understanding the metamorphosed peletic rocks. Okay, if the question is asked that which diagram is very much useful for deducing the mineral assemblage of peletic rocks, the answer will be AFM diagram. Okay, now Thomson have 5 component systems. They are SiO2, L2O3, K2O, FeO and MgO, and he ignores minor components in the peletic rock like Na2O, CaO, etc. Now, because quartz is a ubiquitous phase in metamorphosed peletic rocks, 5 component system is projected into 4 component system, that is L2O, K2O, FeO and MgO. So it is also known as AKFM diagram. Because muscovite is a common mineral in these rocks, all composition are projected from muscovite onto the front face of the diagram, which contains L2O, FeO and MgO. So the front face of the diagram is also called as AFM diagram. Now see, minerals that contain no K2O like andalusite, kyanite and sillimanite, they plot at the A corner of the diagram. And the minerals like staurolite, chloritoid, chlorite and garnet, they plot on the front face of the diagram, that is on the AFM diagram. Biotite on the other hand doesn't contain K2O and has a varying amount of L2O3. Thus, it shows a solid solution that lies in the 4 component system. Because muscovite is potassium poor, this results in biotite being projected into the negative values of L2O3. Now, to calculate the plotting parameters of AFM diagram, the following formula are used. See, generally in peletic rocks at lower temperature, muscovite is stable. But if we keep on increasing temperature, then gradually muscovite becomes unstable, and in that place plagioclase becomes very much stable. So in lower grade peletic rocks, we project the diagram from muscovite, whereas in high grade metamorphic rock, we project it from orthoclase. Now see, we have also discussed what does the projecting from a particular mineral phase means. It means that this mineral is present commonly along the whole diagram. Okay. Now see, when we project it from muscovite, the formula of A is L2O3 minus 3K2O. But when we project it from feldspar, then the formula is L2O3 minus K2O. Because in muscovite, L2O3 is to K2O ratio is 1:3, whereas in K feldspar, L2O3 is to K2O ratio is 1:1. Next, we have F equal to FeO and M equal to MgO. Now in this diagram, we can clearly separate MgO and FeO.